Okay, let's go with Ecclesiastes. Y'all know the church has been teaching on Ecclesiastes. We branched off, spent 4 Sundays on studying Israel. But before we jump into today's lesson, we need to go back to the first lesson we had, which was on May 16th of Ecclesiastes. It was only 3 verses. So that wasn't much. So I do need to go back and look at it. We need to find out why Solomon writes this book of the Bible. It will all be opinion. So if you have a feeling as we go along, express it, because it's a strange book, really, the way it's written. It appears that King Solomon, he wrote this book almost as an autobiography. He looks at life after it's already been lived, and he begins this book with a review of his own life experiences. And it's about 90% negative. And, I don't like teaching negative. It's a strange book. We had one night, we said this in that other lesson, that God spoke to Solomon. Second Chronicles said that night God appeared to Solomon. He said to him, "Ask for whatever you want and I'll give it to you." Solomon answered God, "You have shown great kindness to David my father and have made me king in his place. Now, dear Lord, let your promise to my father David be confirmed, for you have made me king over a people who are numerous as the dust of the earth." This is what he asked for. "Give me wisdom and knowledge, that I may lead this people, for who is able to govern this great people of yours?" Then God said to Solomon, "Since this is your heart's desire, and you've not asked for wealth, possessions, or honor, nor death, the death of your enemies, and since you've not asked for a long life, but for wisdom and knowledge to govern my people over whom I've made you king. Therefore," God speaking, "wisdom and knowledge will be given to you. And I will also give you wealth, possessions, and honor such as no king who was before you ever had, and none after you will ever have." It's important to know he didn't ask for the wealth, but God said, "I'll give it to you anyway." What did he ask for?
Wisdom and knowledge.
Wisdom to what?
People.
Govern his people. He was specific to govern the people. Giving Solomon wisdom does not mean, or did not mean, that Solomon would be perfect and he would not sin. He made many bad choices. Even after he possessed this wisdom that God had given to him, he still made bad choices. King Solomon's fame grew across the world as he built a fabulous temple and a palace. But Solomon taxed the people heavily and forced many of them into being laborers for building these magnificent structures. Now it's important that we know, how did he live his life? What's the greatest thing I could build? A temple for my God. Okay, I got it. Now what's the next greatest thing I could do? I'll build me a big palace. And now what can I do? Well, I think this is where he is. What now? And you'll see if you pick up on that. It was toward the end of Solomon's life that he began to question the meaning of life. And he looked back on his own life, and Solomon began writing his thoughts about life in the book called Ecclesiastes. We skipped 4 lessons in the book of Ecclesiastes while we studied about the land of Israel. The lesson for today is Ecclesiastes Chapter 5. I think that we should go back first and read all of chapter 1, and then we'll come to chapter 5, because chapter 1 sets up what's going on here. He's pouring his heart out on things, and it's negative. And I like to get to the end when you tell me, why do you think he's doing that? He's got everything. As we read chapter 1, see if you can understand what's going on in the mind of Solomon. So there's 18 verses in chapter 1. The words of the teacher, son of David, king of Jerusalem. Meaningless, meaningless, says the teacher. Utterly meaningless. Everything is meaningless. What do people gain from all of their labor in which they toil under the sun? Generations come and generations go, but the earth remains forever. The sun rises and the sun sets. Then it hurries back to where it rises. The wind blows to the south and it turns to the north. Round and round it goes, ever returning on its course. All streams flow to the sea, yet the sea is never full. To the place the streams come from, there they return again. All things are wearisome, more than one can say. The eye never has enough of seeing, nor the ear have its fill of hearing. What has been will be again, and what has been done will be done again. There is nothing new under the sun. Well, that's an unusual statement. Nothing new. If you could just see today what's in the world. He said, is there anything of which you can say, look, this is something new? It was here already long ago, and it was here before our time. No one remembers the former generations, and even those yet to come will not be remembered by those who follow him. I, the teacher, was king over Israel and Jerusalem. I applied my mind to study and explore by wisdom all that is done under the heavens. What a heavy burden God has laid on mankind. I have seen all the things that are done under the sun. All of them are meaningless, a chasing after the wind. What is crooked cannot be straightened, and what is lacking cannot be counted. I said to myself, look, I have increased in wisdom more than anyone who's ever ruled over Jerusalem before me. I have experienced much of wisdom and knowledge. Then I applied myself to the understanding of wisdom and also of the madness and folly. But I learned that this too is chasing after the wind. For with much wisdom comes much sorrow. The more knowledge, the more grief. It seemed everything, according to Solomon, is either meaningless or worthless. Why do you think Solomon is so negative in these writings? Now we need to get at least 4 or 5 or 6 opinions out here. There's no set answer to it. What's his attitude when he's writing this, and why do you think he's writing this? Willie?
I think he's suffering from feeling of worthlessness.
Okay.
He feels that he hasn't done as much as God has laid on him. I think he feels like he's fallen short.
Okay. That's certainly a possibility too. Yeah. Joe?
Well, he's putting himself in his place, I think. Recognizing that his efforts, his power is meaningless when it comes to accomplishing anything of major value. And eventually, recognition of the fact that God's in control. I mean, one of the things that he says in that, I thought it was absolutely fantastic to read, in that all of the rivers run into the sea, and yet the sea is not full.
Yeah.
Now, this is nothing to me but an explanation of how good God put this all together so that everything functions according to his plan, not ours.
Okay. So you think maybe he's looking at it as though that's not the way he would have done it. Hey, it's the way God set up the world. But we have to remember, the world today, we're not in heaven yet. It's going to be bad. There are going to be bad things, bad people. I kind of had my opinion that maybe he's done everything. I believe he's done that. And then he looks back over his life. He says,
I don't know why, but for some reason, I decided to read Ecclesiastes when I was at University of Arkansas.
okay.
And I was about as depressed as I've ever been.
Okay.
For some reason, reading Ecclesiastes started to put my mind back in the right frame.
Okay.
He also says people running to and fro, and I was looking at people out there on that campus, running to class and doing all this other stuff, and I'm going, you know what?
And two, I know like our human nature too, and he was that, as smart as he was and everything. But you get so busy with doing what you're trying to accomplish and get done and get your eyes off God.
Yeah.
And that's when you really,
Yeah. Yeah, I
Get
kind of
messed
feel that
up.
way too sometimes. He looked back and he sees all the thing that's going on, and
Yeah.
that's not important. It seems like it's important when we're in it, but when we get out of it and we look back to, you know, that really wasn't important. We talked about this. You go in and you build, you have your, or move into your first house. And when you work in the flower beds, you do all this stuff, and in his eyes, he said, it's meaningless because you're going to sell that house and go get a bigger one anyway. And you get to that one and you put a fence up, you do all this stuff and do all this stuff. And what he's saying is, it's meaningless. You're going to go and leave that. But if you use that application to the whole world to him, he's saying it's meaningless what we do, so many of these things, because it's all going to go away. We're going to start a brand new life. But way he writes this, I think it's somebody that's been on top. What can I do now? How can I top building the palace and the temple? What can I do? I'm on the top. Now, if you're a peon on the bottom and you look and say, man, I would like all kinds of things to accomplish, he reached the top. He asked for wisdom and he got it. He's built everything he knows how to build. He's king over the people. And he's looking back and he's recognizing, I think, all these little things that went on. It's kind of part of life, but they don't have much meaning. But the way he puts it, it makes you wonder, like, life itself is meaningless. Well, not all of life is meaningless. What we do for the Lord is important.
That's right.
And it's going to be important when we move on. All the other stuff's going to be left out. So we got to separate the meaningless things from the. You still have to live. When you were young, you had to go and get a job. You had to work. You have to do those things. You blame Adam for that. And so all of these things you still have to do. And he said, but that's not the important ones. Yeah, you do. Meaningless is not a good word. I think that in the King James is vanity, vanity. And then the other would say it's meaningless and worthless. So some of the things that we do, they're a natural part of life, but they're going to go away. So don't stress out over them. I mean, you could go a lot of directions with that. But I think him being on top, he doesn't have anything to look forward to. How can I do something better? I meant to look up that scripture, and I did, and there was one that Jesus asked the rich man the question about the rich man said, what can I do to be saved? And he said, sell all what you have, and then accept and follow me. And he says, he turned around and walked away, didn't he? To him, possessions were more important than the afterlife through Jesus Christ, who could give it to you. To him, that was done. One rich man said, well, I'll just tear down my barns and build bigger. And I'll get more stuff. I'll tear those down and build bigger. It's the wrong direction. There's nowhere in the Bible says a Christian can't be wealthy. No. There's nothing in the Bible that says you can't, have good income, have possession. It's your attitude, and we'll probably get to more of that in just a minute.
The other thing to me is that, he overlooks the fact that God gave him wisdom, to me.
Yeah, he's not mentioned it, yeah.
And, when the two women claimed the same baby,
Oh, yeah.
to solve that problem the way he did, he proved he got that wisdom.
Yeah, he did. That really was wisdom, yeah. Here's what some Bible scholars say about the purpose of Solomon's writings. The purpose of Solomon's writing in this book is to spare future generations the bitterness of learning through their own experiences that life is meaningless apart from God. Now, he didn't say that, but I think that's probably true. That's not mine. That's another pastor that made that statement, and it makes pretty good sense. It's you say, well, getting married, having children, you say that's meaningless? No, but compared to God, it could be considered meaningless apart from God. One Bible scholar uses this story to try and explain the thinking of Solomon. He said, the chocolate bunny lies in the Easter basket surrounded by green paper grass. On Easter morning, a little boy sees the chocolate bunny in the basket. Eagerly, he picks up the bunny and he bites into one of the ears, but his excitement dropped when he saw it was one pastor says that represents Solomon. When he reached that point, he saw how hollow some of these things were, I think, have been here. Based on the story just told, Solomon views life as a wonderful looking at it from afar. But then, with knowledge and wisdom, he sees it is also hollow and without meaning. Everything you accomplish will disappear. Well, that's true. It is hollow, empty, and meaningless. So, the chocolate bunny, it's still a chocolate bunny. There was just a big expectation and a big letdown when he saw that it was hollow, it was meaningless. Hard to get a handle on him. Just to kind of sum up chapter 1, I believe that Solomon had everything and he had accomplished everything that he could think of. So now as we look back over everything he's accomplished, he decided that it was meaningless. He could have done other things on some of these places where he put his priorities. So now we're going to go to chapter 5. Sometimes people say, oh, I'm not going to be there next Sunday. Yeah, where are you going to be? So I'm going so-and-so with my family or grandkids. Do it. That's important. That's important. This is a classroom. It's okay. If you're available, be here. But family's important. If you have something to do with family and it's Sunday, I think that has higher priority than being here. Be with family all you can be. They're going to look up to you. They're going to see how you walk, how you talk, how you live. But being with them is important. I'm just defending David since he's at the ball game today. It was a Father's Day gift, and it was a secret. So that's good. That's good for him to be with his kids like that. Ecclesiastes 5. Now we've skipped some chapters in here. It says, guard your steps when you go into the house of God. Go near to listen rather than offer the sacrifice of fools who do not know that what they do is wrong. Now Solomon turns to the subject of worship. He says, guard your steps, which simply means to watch out or be careful as you enter the house of God. Interesting. As you walk into our worship service, how is your attitude and what are you looking for when you go in there? Some people go in there, some people come from the streets and come in there. They don't have a purpose. My wife made me come. I just come because my kids come. As you walk into the service, how is your attitude? Solomon said, go near to listen rather than to offer a sacrifice. Well, we don't offer, blood sacrifices, but we do have an offering or a tithe to give. And we need to go in and listen. And I tell you, if you listen to Josh Howerton, you have to listen fast. You will get a blessing. The guy's really good. Mike Bro, very good. Both of those guys. Greg Bradford, very good.
He is.
When they talk, those three, you don't walk off saying, what did he mean? You can't do that. They show you example after example after example of what they're talking about. So it says, go in there, just be quiet and listen to that part. Kind of skipping around the music for it. Think for a minute about all the different people attending our worship service. Do you think that they all came for the same reason? Solomon said, don't be like fools who do not know that they are doing wrong. What kind of attitude do people have that comes in the service? They're not all the same, are they? They have different reasons. Through Josh's voice. You hear God through Josh's voice. He puts the words in there for him to say, and that's what we should go. Listen to what he's saying. Very helpful. Name some reason that you think people come to, both good and bad reasons people come to the services. Anybody? Why different reasons people come?
Social club.
Huh?
Social club.
That's a good one. Yeah, absolutely. Some of it's social club.
Business.
That's
Huh?
right.
It's good for their business.
Yeah.
Worship.
And some are worship. Some really do go in there to work. It is a worship service. This is not a worship service. This is a learning place. What about music? You think some come because they like that music?
Sure.
We're older people, so we have a different view of it. It's a rock concert, a religious rock concert in our eye. If you're in Josh's place, what are you thinking? They're coming, they're getting saved, getting baptized, they're reaching that group.
And some people come and don't even realize the reason why.
I think that's true,
But it is because
yeah.
they're gonna be, that day, spoken to and Holy Spirit will get through to them.
Yeah,
And
some-
because probably somebody prayed for them so
Well,
hard.
it could be, yeah. But some just walk in there like, okay, let's get this over with and get out. We do my duty. That's, I want to be recognized because I'm going to run for office and I'm going to go to church. Or I'm going to be doing something else. I want to be recognized. I go to church. There's those people. Not our place to judge them,
No, it isn't.
but we all need to judge our own self. What are we expecting when we go in there? If we expect a blessing from God, you will hear the words. You will hear the words in the service. Verse 2, he said, do not be quick with your mouth. Do not be hasty in your heart to utter anything before God. God is in heaven and you are on earth, so let your words be few. It's difficult to understand exactly what Solomon means. Most likely he's referring to the long-winded prayers with little meaning. A lot of people do long prayers with little meaning. Some do very short prayers with a whole lot they can. It doesn't mean everybody that prays long is wrong. It doesn't mean that. Pat does a good job here, so does Doris. They don't get outside the circle. What are we here praying for? The request that you people have given them, and Pat does it and Doris does it, and before they finish that prayer, they pray for me and for this lesson. That's a great way to pray. Situational prayer, right where they are. When we go out to eat and we have a blessing, Jesus says to do that. But we don't have to name all these people that we're praying for. No, it's a different situation now. Thank God for the fellowship of people and bless the food. We're fortunate to have it. And that's the way we go with it. So here he kind of means most likely the long-winded, because there's some scriptures about babbling. Don't let your mouth get ahead of your heart. Anybody ever have that happen? Yeah, everybody's had it. You say no, well, you got another problem. Yeah, sometimes. I have a great grandson. He gets so excited when he's talking. How old is he now? 6? 5? He wants to, his mouth is trying to say stuff that his brain hasn't thought of yet. And you see the excitement. I want to get this message out to you. And he'll say the word, and he'll say 2, 3, and his brain is not keeping up with his mouth. And that's cute in a young kid. But in an adult, watch out. We let those words get out, and then we say what? Wish I had said that. Oh, man. Matthew 6:7, Jesus said, and when you pray, do not keep on babbling like pagans, for they think that they will be heard because of their long, many words. And he's talking about not the Pharisees, because he said pagans. But the same thing goes on with the Pharisees too. Not all Pharisees were bad. Hey, Paul was a Pharisee. But they had law being the most important thing, and they like standing on a street corner and pray. Why? So people would see them and say, look at me. I'm a Pharisee. I pray. And one Pharisee went as far as to say, I'm glad I'm not like him over there. And this is a young poor person over there. And his prayers are simple and straight. When you make a vow to God, do not delay to fulfill it. He has no problem in pleasure in fools. Fulfill your vow. It is better not to make a vow than to make one and not fulfill it. Now, a vow is a promise. In this case, talking about a promise to God. I have a name for that. Sometimes people get so desperate for help that they go to God with foolish requests with this, if you will, then I will. Prayers. Now, I know that goes on a lot. I'm not asking who does, because I don't embarrass anybody. I think we've had times that, oh Lord, you just give me this. I'll go every Sunday and I'll do this. it's a, if you will, I will type thing. You gotta be careful, that's a trap to get into. Don't make a promise to God, that's what Solomon's saying here. Don't make one that you cannot keep.
God cannot be manipulated,
No,
and a lot of
But-
people try to.
but can God change his mind?
Yeah.
Yes, He can.
Good, okay. Everybody know where the greatest example of that is?
The destruction of the city.
No, that would fall in the category, but on Mount Sinai, when they were building the golden calf, Moses was at the top of the mountain talking with God, and God said, they're building a golden calf and worship. I'm gonna kill them all. You remember that? I'm gonna kill them all! And then Moses said, but if you do that, in history, what's it gonna look like? What kind of God you are? You drug them all the way out to Egypt to the desert and killed them. Scripture says God changed his mind and did not do what he said he would do. That's the way it's worded on there. So, you may think he's got you going in one direction, and you pray, and he might say, okay, I'll go with you, go that direction. No, you're not manipulating him, that's for sure. But God will answer prayers sometimes that you don't think they would. But in your prayer, watch out about putting a promise in there.
I could never make it. Help me, Lord. Please. I promise not to try and kill myself anymore. Save me, and I swear I'll be a better father. I'll be a better man. I'll be a better everything. All I ask is, make me a better swimmer. Oh, God. I can't do this to Julie. We can't do this to Julie. Oh God, let me live that I promise to obey every one of the 10 Commandments. I shall not kill. I shall not commit adultery. I shall not. I'll learn the 10 Commandments. And then...
Hold on.
Just get me back to the beach. I'll be honest in business. I promise not to sell lakeside lots unless there's a lake around. I want to see another sunrise. I want to see another sunset. It was a mistake, God. I never really wanted to kill myself. I just wanted to get your attention. Help me make it. I'll give you 50% of everything I make. 50%, God. I want to point out that nobody gives 50%.
What was the promise? Why was he making promises first off? Why did he make a promise to God? If God would what?
Save him.
Save him. He said, make me a better swimmer. So, because he needed something from God and he was desperate for help. He was desperate for help. Why did he keep changing his promise? He went from 50% down to 10%.
You got closer.
Closer to
He was gonna make it.
See if we can word that. When he felt that he was no longer desperate, he no longer needed God's help. Then he began to lower his promises. Do you think that happens in real life sometimes to people? Yeah, I think so. But yeah. Now the reason there was a break in there, I don't have a tool to edit out a word. And he had a real bad word in there. And so finally I just made it and I cut this one off here and then I started here and I made two That's why there was a gap in there. I had to get that one word out there. Glenda said, you better be sure you got it out there. So I played it several times to be sure. But that's true. Sometimes we're closer to God when we need His help than we are when we don't need His help. What lesson can you and I take from the short video?
Don't make promises you don't plan on keeping.
That's right. And don't make them something that you couldn't possibly complete too. You just be careful what. You don't need to make promises to God. Solomon gives us some good advice in the next two scriptures about this. Do not let your mouth lead you into sin, and do not protest to the temple messenger. My vow was a mistake. Why should God be angry at what you say and destroy the work of your hands? Don't vow something that your fleshly desire will cause you to break. If you make a vow and then break it, don't blame God. You should have been more careful when you made the vow. That's a real lesson. Be careful. There's a time to speak and a time to not speak. We all need to learn when to apply each. Speaking too quickly can often bring out the true feelings of your heart, and you can't always take your words back. Your heart jumped in there and says, I don't like your dress, it's too short, it's ugly. And he said, why did I say that? I let those words get out too quick. Can you take them back? No, you can't take them back. If your heart is controlled by the flesh, it's wicked, and evil things come out of the mouth. On the other hand, if your heart is controlled by the Spirit, then good things come forth from your mouth. Think about that. In Luke, he said, a good man out of the good treasure of his heart bringeth forth that which is good. And an evil man out of the evil treasure of his heart bringeth forth that which is evil. For of the abundance of the heart his mouth speaketh. So what do you have more in your heart? You know, evil or good? More of the Spirit or more of Satan? What's most is liable to be what comes out of your mouth quick. So don't speak quick. Do not make promises to God that you might not be able to keep. Much dreaming and many words are meaningless. Therefore, fear God. There are two different thoughts about the meaning of dreaming in this verse. In one interpretation, the word dreaming applies to daydreaming. The other is to our real nightly dreaming. Daydreaming, the Bible mentions daydreaming a few times, but never in a positive light. Daydreaming is usually coupled with laziness or other useless pursuits. So that's what he's talking about, daydreaming, when you should be awake and be working. Isaiah said his watchmen are blind. All of them know nothing. All of them are mute dogs, unable to bark, dreamers lying down who love to slumber. Night dreaming. In the Old Testament, God often used dreams to send a message to an individual. Most dreams are not sent by God. Is that a good statement? Do you think that's right? Yeah. It's not from God with a message. Dreams come and go. Many are the results of something that happened earlier in the day or early in the week. Oftentimes, dreams make no sense at all. You and I must be careful and not accept the good dreams as coming from God and the bad dreams from Satan. Most are simply meaningless dreams. Most. If we're not careful, we could, that's what it try to read something into a dream that's really not there. Don't take a dream and say, oh, I know what that means. Really? You can go down to some of these places and they'll read, you tell them your dreams and they'll interpret them for you. And you play with these cards. What do they call those cards?
Tarot.
that's gonna tell you your future?
You don't believe that?
Huh?
You don't believe that?
Joe's got a bunch of those in his pocket. Oh, I see what you're gonna do next. Night dreaming in action. He says, in the last days, God says, I will pour out my spirit on all people. Your sons and daughters will prophesy. Your young men will see visions, and the old men will dream dreams. Notice it says, in the last days. Some people think we're in the last days now. We're not, we're getting close. If you see the poor oppressed in a district and justice and rights denied, do not be surprised at such things, for one official is eyed higher one and over them both, and the higher still. The increase from the land is taken by all. The king himself profits from the fields. Solomon's telling it like it is. It's always like this in the world then, and it is today. There's a pecking order in the workforce. Would you agree? There's a laborer, then there's a supervisor, then there's a manager, then there's somebody else on there. He said usually a worker, a laborer, that actually does the work. But then there is one over all of them that we could call the manager, and yet still another one over that one that might be called the owner. You can go as high as you want to, but there's one more above that. Solomon said, don't be surprised when you observe the relationship in the workplace of the higher and the lower. It's common life. But Solomon does give us a warning that if we are one of the managers or owners, remember that there is one up above you that's over all of us, and he sees how you treat those that are under you. In Colossians it says, masters, give unto your servants that which is just and equal, knowing that ye also have a master in heaven. Sum that real well with that. The subject of the next 8 verses is wealth and riches. I think we'll read all 8 of them and then come back and discuss it so you can see. Whoever loves money never has enough. Whoever loves wealth is never satisfied with their income. This too is meaningless. As goods increase, so do those who consume them. And what benefit are they to the owners except to feast their eyes upon them? The sleep of a laborer is sweet, whether they eat little or much. But as for the rich, their abundance permits them no sleep. I have seen a grievous evil under the sun. Wealth is hoarded to the harm of its owners, or wealth lost through some misfortune, so that when they have children, there is nothing left for them to inherit. Everyone comes naked from their mother's womb, and as everyone comes, so they depart. They take nothing from their toil that they can carry in their hands. This too is a grievous evil. As everyone comes, so they depart. And what do they gain, since they toil for the wind? All their days. Now you see the whole thing. Let's go back. You kind of got the picture. Whoever loves money never has enough. Whoever loves wealth is never satisfied with their income. He said that's meaningless. This speaks of someone who has made money or wealth his God. When a person does this, he is never satisfied. He always has a need for more. To me, that's kind of the picture of Solomon. He doesn't know what more is. There's not any more on earth. There is in the afterlife. It is not wealth itself, but the drive for wealth that never reaches enough. Some are so consumed with adding more machines, adding more buildings, adding more hours in the day, and they take away from God and family. Work can take away from family. Again, it is not wealth or success that is dangerous. It is who you hurt during your drive for more. Timothy said, for the love of money is the root of all evil. Not the money itself, it's for the love of it, which while some coveted after, they have erred from the faith, pierced themselves through with many sorrows. As goods increase, so do they who consume them. And what benefit are they to the owners except to fasten their eyes upon them? As you gain more wealth, it seems that you also gain more friends. And you gain more relatives who will continually consume it. You win the lottery, you'll have relatives you never heard of before. Yes, the more your wealth, the more who are around you to consume it. The sleep of a laborer is sweet, whether they eat little or much, but as for the rich, their abundance permits them no sleep. Solomon seems to be talking about those at the bottom of the work chain we just talked about. They go home tired from their labor and sweetly sleep. While the owner is so concerned about his wealth, his mind does not permit him to sleep. Interesting? I see that. I have seen a grievous evil under the sun, wealth hoarded to the harm of its owners, or wealth lost through some misfortune, so that when they have children, there is nothing left for them to inherit. Those who hoarded their money and possessions, refusing to share it with others, will lead a very unhappy and a miserable life. They make their life protecting what they have. But wait, it gets even worse. They die, and then when the worst happens to them. Timothy said it this way, that they do good, that they be rich in good works, ready to distribute, willing to communicate, laying up in store for themselves a good foundation against the time to come, that they may lay hold on eternal life. Don't lay up riches on earth, but in heaven. And you know, you've heard this before. It's easier for a camel to go through the eye of a needle than for a rich man to enter the kingdom of God. You heard that before? It doesn't say you can't do it. It's just more difficult. Everyone comes naked from their mother's womb, and everyone comes so they depart. They take nothing from the toil that they can carry in their hands. This too is a grievous evil, as everyone comes so they depart. And what do they gain since they toil for the wind? All their days they eat in darkness with great frustration, affliction, and anger. Death cancels out our riches we possess on the earth. When we die, the things we possessed on the earth pass on to somebody else. The only thing we will possess in heaven are the things that we stored up there, good works, when we are still alive. Timothy said, for we brought nothing into the world, and it's certain we can carry nothing out. Did you hear about the two ladies standing at the funeral? One was the wife, and they were buried, and her husband was being buried. And the lady said, you know, he said he wanted all of his money buried with him. And the lady said, you didn't do it, did you? He said, yeah, I did. I wrote him a check for $5,000. Oh, I guess that's okay. Labor not for the meat which will perish, but for that meat which endures into everlasting life. When we leave here and we go to be with Jesus, get all the Christians up there, he's going to start handing out rewards. Some pastors say you're going to throw all your works out there, good and bad, everything you've done, and the bad just gets burned up like that, and what's left over is the good you did. And he says there's rewards in heaven. We don't know what those rewards are. That's only the Christians. So store up treasures by doing what you think God wants you to do. In the next verses, Solomon sums up the previous verses about wealth and riches. He said, this is what I have observed to be good, that is appropriate for a person to eat, to drink, and to find satisfaction in their toilsome labor under the sun during the few days of life that is given. He paints our whole lifetime like a few days for them. For this is their lot. Moreover, when God gives someone wealth and possessions and the ability to enjoy them, to accept their lot and to be happy in their toil, this is a gift from God. They seldom reflect on the days of their life because God keeps them occupied with the gladness of heart. It's okay to pursue wealth and possessions as long as we put God and family first. But Solomon reminds us that life on earth is like a few days compared to the life to come. Jesus said it this way, but seek ye first His kingdom and His righteousness, and all these things will be given to you as well. Just keep seeking what He wants you to do. Everything else will take care of itself. The Apostle Paul said, I know what it is to be in need. I know what it is to have plenty. I have learned the secret of being content in any and every situation, whether well-fed or hungry, whether living in plenty or want. The Apostle Paul said, I have learned to be content whatever the circumstances. How about you? Are you learning to be content in circumstance? Or are you blaming God for all the bad things on earth? We need to be careful of that. Before we have closing prayer, I don't know whether to keep going in Ecclesiastes. It's kind of a strange book. I have a lesson that takes probably 2 Sundays on Satan that we did in, I think it was 2014, so it's been 7 years ago. I can switch and do that for the next 2 Sundays about Satan and demons. Some of you won't maybe hear them. Or I can stay with Ecclesiastes. I'm trying to decide what, I've already read the next chapter 6. It's okay. Anybody have a preference? How many want me to keep going in Ecclesiastes maybe? One. How many would like to have this lesson on Satan? Oh, wow. Okay. That's part 1. We'll do it next Sunday. And I think we'll all learn probably more from that than doing the lesson in chapter 6. I want to do the right thing. Some of you heard it before, but you'll be like me. Even when I reread it during the week, I thought, I put that in there? How did I do that? So I think you'll do the same thing. You'll say, yeah, okay, I remember that. But Satan and demons, it's very important. Now let's have closing prayer. Dear Lord, thank you for